We'll show this one first. So Van Jones made a comment. He made a couple comments on Vivek actually after Vivek did a speech in which I think he called him like a pretty much called him the demigod or something like that. And I was impressed with here. I found it. See, sometimes I jump on and I'm like, oh, I wasn't gonna play this one. All right, so I want to play the actual first video right here. This is where Vivek, I believe it was either after a debate. Yeah, it was after a debate, and Van Jones had some comments on Vivek being a little scared of him. You'll see exactly what the comments were, but then I'm going to show later a more recent interaction that I was impressed with.
That's dangerous. Guy is dangerous. That's dangerous. When those people were saying Jews will not replace us, Jews will not replace us, that slogan sits on top of a very sick and twisted view that if you bring enough people of color here, we are so deficient, we are so stupid, we are so unwanted that we will be zombies to fill out the ranks for some Democratic Party agenda that Jewish people.
You know what's so funny? As I'm going back and looking at this video, I'm hearing Van Jones, and you can just hear the finesse. And I wasn't even gonna, like I said, I wasn't even gonna play this video. But when you hear him talk about how do you go from saying, when you see the crowd, Jews will not replace us, to making a reference to darker skinned people. What did he say? Hold on.
Here, we are so deficient, we are so that if you bring enough people of color here.
So what is the statement, Jews will not replace us, have to do with bringing enough people of color here? You see how, but this is what happens a lot, and I'm noticing it with a lot of these, whether it's protest groups, whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it's LGBTQ, whether it's even some of the protests going on between Israel and Palestine, where people just choose sides. And what ends up happening is you'll have a side choose another side that doesn't even like them because it's the friend of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So then you end up getting two groups of people who don't even like each other, always trying to combine their efforts, like combine their victimhood to join forces in order to push a larger agenda. But then what I see end up happening is you have all of these groups that contradict each other as far as like their purpose, their principles, and their values, but then they end up working together. So then it's like you're pushing the ideals that you don't even align with. But neither here nor there. Let's keep going.
We are so deficient, we are so stupid, we are so unwanted that we will be zombies to fill out the ranks for some Democratic Party agenda that Jewish people are manipulating and driving forward. That leads to violence. That puts at risk Jewish people. That puts at risk people of color. It is wrong. And the smug, condescending way that he just spews this poison out is very, very dangerous.
So he's talking about
he
Vivek.
won't stop Trump, but he's going to outlive Trump by about 50 years. And you're watching the rise of an American demagogue that is a very, very despicable person. Yeah. And I was shaking listening to him talk because a lot of people don't know that is one step away from Nazi propaganda coming out of his mouth.
That's Van Jones calling Vivek Ramaswamy a demagogue.
All right, so now I want to go and take you to, they ran into each other. So they ran into each other. I don't know whether it was at an event, maybe it was at the DNC, who knows? They ran into each other, and we'll take a look at. So after Van Jones said this, Vivek responded. Hold on. Is this to making sure that I got the right video? All right. So Vivek responded. Oh, I had both.
I was shaking listening to him talk because a lot of people don't know that
media. You got this character
Nazi propaganda coming out of his mouth.
And then you get the mainstream media. You got this character Van Jones on CNN afterwards saying, this is the rise of an American demagogue who's going to live 50 years longer than Trump. This is dangerous. I am shaking. That's what he says. Just shut the f*** up. At a certain point, just shut the f*** up.
All right, so Vivek said this in response, and I saw your comment, Maya. That's the exact point. That's the exact point. You know, why is he saying people of color? People, and what it does is it triggers so many different things. They know that they can emotionally trigger Black people specifically in this video, or Latino, Latinx. They know that they can trigger. I'm saying Black people specifically. That's why they have Van Jones up there saying it. And it's like that entire Charlottesville incident. What's so funny about it is, or what's not funny about it, but what I've noticed about it is the fact that I can't see like that was made like almost like a Black Lives Matter staple protest, what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. But I always ask people, like, yo, what did the protesters say about Black people? Like, did you hear anybody? Like, well, they always say that, oh, Jews will not replace us. I heard them saying that. But what did they say about Black people? And not to say that we shouldn't come to the efforts of other groups that are being targeted for racism, in this case, anti-Semitism. Not to say that, but if we're being real here, it seems that they're always trying to throw Black people as the victim group into what everybody else is already doing. Oh, well, it was Black Lives Matter. A Black guy died. Okay, let's turn it into queer Black Lives Matter. Let's turn it into LGBTQ Black Lives Matter. It's like Black people always get their movements diluted. Always get their movements diluted. And that's why nothing ever happens, in my opinion. But let's keep looking at this video. I want to show you the actual exchange that Van Jones and Vivek had in person.
Van Jones.
Let's actually, we don't have to show you the whole video with Officer Tatum. All right, here we go.
Vivek. I mean, this guy, if he's not going to be the president of the United States in the game, caught that fool on the elevator, and he on the elevator talking about it's a nothing burger. Elevator, he's before that, but
that's a different story.
Van Jones get confronted by Vivek Ramaswamy and tuck his tail between his legs. Wrote a clip.
So we got death threats. We got death threats after the thing you said. So that's Van Jones for you. So on air, I actually don't swear. I did it very intentionally that one time, and I want you to just know about it because I think it's important. So you were on air and you said that. He's like, he's a demagogue, he's dangerous, he's going to be around for 50 years.
So obviously this is their conversation.
The first time in the campaign, we get a death threat of a man who wants to show up in New Hampshire. Thankfully, the police intervened, got it. The next day, back-to-back days, so my wife's scared enough. The next day, we wake up, it's 3 a.m., we get a call from him. He's my security guard saying, thank God you picked up, because we just got a call that somebody showed up at your house and has 4 dead bodies out.
And see, this is the thing that I think people don't realize with politics, and we're going to get into a little bit later when we're talking about RFK Jr., how people are responding to him just because he's making the decision to step away and endorse Trump. People are trying to tarnish his name, say all these terrible things about him, act as if his dad's rolling over in his grave because of his actions right now, all these different mean things. And a lot of times these commentators say certain things and don't realize what comes from it. When you call Donald Trump for months and months, for over a year, when you say that he's like Hitler and you make these references to him, then how are we surprised then when somebody tries to assassinate him? When you say that he's a demigod, and when you say all these things, what Van Jones said about Vivek Ramaswamy, why would you not expect somebody to take action off of these things? And this is because the people that are actually saying it, they're not in the field. These are the people that sit at the top. They're pulling strings, or their strings are getting pulled. So they're just looking to entertain the people in Gen Pop. They don't care what happens in Gen Pop. They're just trying to impress the people that put money in their pockets. So they say these outlandish things as if there's not going to be any repercussions to the things that they're saying, because they know that it's going to get views. And in all actuality, they don't care how it impacts the person in their personal life that they're actually saying these things about. Like, if you actually felt these things about, let's say, like a Trump, would you then reach out to him, Biden, or the Obamas? Would you then reach out to him after he gets an assassination attempt and say, hey, wishing for a speedy recovery? We would get in trouble if you, like, could you imagine if somebody took a shot at Hitler and somebody said, well, man, we're wishing Hitler a speedy recovery. Could you imagine that? But then we'll say the same thing about Trump, but then accept no responsibility when there's an assassination attempt on his life. This is what happens when we don't going back to the Western. This is why I like watching Western movies. In Western movies, there was a certain level of accountability that came with everybody walking around with a gun. There was a certain level of accountability that came. Now, I'm not saying that everything was great during those times. Not saying that at all. But there was a certain level, a certain standard of how you behave, of how you speak about somebody. If you lie on somebody, then that was enough for, hey, we're going to have a duel. Because you just tarnished my word, and my word is all I have. Nowadays, we live in a society where it's like you could say anything about anybody, doesn't matter, and then hide behind. It's like you're throwing, You're throwing rocks and then hiding, hiding your hand. That's what people do. But I do want to appreciate and show some love for Van Jones, because maybe not some love, but acknowledge the fact that he's actually standing there and listening to Vivek. We just saw a recent, I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but there was a recent situation with Roland Martin where he decided to try to bully and pick on somebody younger than him who's in the activist space. And then that activist actually pulled up on him in a respectful manner, but asked to speak to him. And Roland Martin kept trying to like move beyond him, like act as if he was better than him, didn't owe him a conversation after you came out of nowhere and said something about me, had a woman get in the middle of it. I can respect Van Jones actually standing and hearing how this impacted Vivek, how it impacted his family, and then we'll see what happens from here.
So that's within 48 hours, and I'm not going to attribute that to your comment because whatever it is. But for our family, you know what? Publicly I didn't do it, but for our family, yeah, it pissed us the heck off, actually. And so the reality is, I don't try to engage in rhetoric that gets other people in danger of bodily harm, but I do think that if somebody's going to, even if you didn't intend to provoke that kind of ire on my family, yeah, in that week it landed with me. Now, at the same time, am I going to test? Do I want to set a good example for people in this country of what discourse looks like? I do. And in the heat of a presidential campaign, and I've been open about it since I left the campaign as well. My competitive spirits, sometimes stop us from being able to have the level of discourse we want. And I think you were wrongfully pushed out of the White House for your comments around 9/11, way back when as well. They were misconstrued, exactly. So what I will tell you is this. Yep. So I just wanted you to know that backdrop. That's my personal song. Don't give it to anybody else.
I will call you in a couple of days and apologize to you.
Okay, well, we don't need to do any of this on air.
Did you hear what he said? Van Jones asked for Vivek Ramaswamy's phone number, personal number, and said, I will call you in a couple of days and I'd like to apologize to your wife. I can respect that. I talk a lot about Van Jones on here. Y'all know that. And I still mean everything that I've said, like him up here crying and stuff on CNN, doing all this extra stuff, just being the emasculated black man. I still believe all that, but I respect this.
You can turn the page and maybe have a chapter to demonstrate.
But what I would respect even more is if the apology is as loud as the initial statement, go on TV and do it. Because you calling his wife, yes, that makes his wife feel better. But does that take away from the things that you actually said on TV? If I call you Hitler on TV and then, when the world is watching, but then I go to you on the side and tell your wife, hey, I'm sorry that I called him Hitler. The impact's not the same, right? So respect here, but also it would be nice if people felt obligated. This is something that I just never liked, since a situation that happened in high school where, you got all the news stations out here when you're accusing somebody of something, but then when it comes out that the person's lying, no news stations, just a little amendment in an article if you're lucky. Van Jones, go on TV and say this. Maybe have a conversation with Vivek on TV. Maybe that'll help us see how politicians or people that just have opposing political views can sit down at the table, have a discussion, and walk away without calling each other's names and hating each other. That would be a nice place for us to get to.
Right. What actual good discourse.
So we don't need to pay attention too much to that. Urs, as you can see, is active in the chat. Urs is active in the chat. Trump 2025. All right, so now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this thing. Now the veggies and the fruit of this thing. All right.